Hey, good evening, folks. Welcome to the Dave Englishman Show with your host, me, David Englishman. Before I get started into this evening's direction, and I guess I'm going to talk about a number of topics, but I wanted to explain something that I think will kind of sum up where I am. So I did a lot of thinking about why I'm doing these videos. And one of the things that I started thinking about, I love doing the research. And I was doing the research for a long time for myself, just so I could be more aware of what was really going on. And I started talking to people who had no clue what was really going on other than what mainstream news was telling them. And I decided, this may be low budget. I think the content is quality. You're getting straight facts. And I wanted to share with you as an audience the things that you're not seeing on mainstream media so that you can have a better informed decision-making process for yourself, because you've got two different views of what's really happening. And when you think about everything that's gone on, you can start to equate that one side is full of BS and they're protecting the Democrats and some of the rhinos that sit in the House and in the Senate. And I wanted to bring you all of these facts, not on a daily basis yet. I don't have the resources to do that. I still work for a living, but I wanted to do this so that you all would have some more knowledge. And with that being said, I want to get into tonight's show and show you all of the fraud and the scandals that are going on within our government, that everything is redirected at Trump so that the news media, the mainstream news media, stays engaged with the whole Trump Russian collusion, him being crazy, to the impeachment, to Ukraine Gate, to just everything. So I want to step back in time, and we're going to talk about Jim Comey and Michael Flynn, and we're going to proceed from there, and we're going to look at things right up to the current and why some things happen and what this really all means for Americans. So let's dive right into this. I've been kind of excited to get to this all day long. So this is Jim Comey. He's being asked, when did he first send FBI agents into the White House to go and interview Michael Flynn? Now, what you're going to hear from this man is half-truths and outright lies. So let's dive into this.
Hard to imagine two FBI agents ending up in the same room. How did that happen?
I sent them. Something I probably wouldn't have done or maybe gotten away with in a more organized investigation, a more organized administration. In the George W. Bush administration, for example, or the Obama administration, the protocol, two men that all of us have perhaps increased appreciation for over the last 2 years. And in both of those administrations, there was process. And so if the FBI wanted to send agents into the White House itself to interview a senior official, you would work through the White House counsel, and there'd be discussions and approvals, and who would be there. And I thought, it's early enough, let's just send a couple guys over. And so we placed a call to Flynn, said, hey, we're sending a couple guys over. Hope you'll talk to them. He said, sure. Nobody else was there. They interviewed him in a conference room at the White House Situation Room, and he lied to them. And that's what he's now pled guilty to.
What did he think they were coming over there for?
I don't think he knew. No, we didn't tell him. Just say, I've got sending over a couple of agents. I want to ask you some questions. I didn't have this conversation, my deputy director did, but hope you got a few minutes you can sit down and talk to them. And he said, sure.
Okay, I have a six.
Okay, so to sum up, General Michael Flynn was the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. He oversaw, this is under the Obama administration, so he oversaw the intelligence for the Defense Department, which means he had intelligence from multiple agencies at his disposal. He was one of the highest ranking intel heads in the country. Very well respected, trusted. Well, he had some differing opinions than Obama and most of his staff regarding the Iran nuclear deal. And one of the things that Flynn had brought to light under the Obama administration was the fact that he wanted to conduct an internal audit of the CIA to find out where has all the money gone and what were the projects that the money was spent on since the CIA's inception. Something that's never been done. And the American people have doubts about a lot of things that have happened within our nation's history since probably, I would say, 1913, 1914. A lot of things have happened. Our Constitution has been changed. But this man here, he set Michael Flynn up. And the reason why is that Michael Flynn had the intel on a lot of things. So we have Christopher Steele, who wrote the dossier that Hillary Clinton paid for, that the DNC also participated in paying for. And Christopher Steele right now is in court in the UK because in the dossier he said that Trump was dealing backdoor through 2 servers in Trump Tower from Alpha Bank, which turned out to not be true. Well, in the dossier he named the Russians involved, and there really is an Alpha Bank, but it's not what everybody thinks, and Trump had nothing to do with it, which has already been proven and debunked. So the man knows what's going on, and he's involved and in meetings in which Comey brings to light, with Obama present, what's going on with Flynn, with Trump, and they decide that they're going to listen to phone calls. And the way that they did this is they kind of pre-planned this. They were the outgoing administration. Trump was the incoming administration. Mike Flynn was going to be one of Trump's top aides. And he national security advisor, for crying out loud, which he's got most of the power of the presidency, also resides kind of in that position. He's the direct advisor. So he's an esteemed man, a 2-star general, and they end up throwing 13 Russian spies out of the country under the Obama administration. Well, they knew that the Russians were going to be in contact in one way, shape, or form with Michael Flynn. He's the incoming. There's no more to say. He ends up getting a phone call from Kislyak, and Kislyak probably ends up asking him, hey, what's going on? Well, this all gets back to the FBI, because the conversations are listened to, because when the phone call came in, Flynn was on vacation in the Dominican Republic. So what they did was they kind of reverse spied, and they said that they were actually listening in on a conversation that Kislyak was having, but in actuality, they were targeting Michael Flynn. So when you think about everything that's gone on with this man, and we're going to get into this a little bit deeper. So, evidence. It says here, get him to lie so we can prosecute him or get him fired. They had planned on everything that they did. So they sent in 2 agents, as Comey just told you, into the White House to interview Flynn. They never told him that he was under investigation. They never told him that, you know, if he lied, he'd be basically perjuring himself to the FBI. And so they started asking him about the phone call that he had with Kislyak. Now, if you're on vacation, you're relaxing, you get a phone call, and you're talking about maybe a whole wide range of things over a 2 or 3 minute period. I'm sure the conversation didn't last more than but a few minutes. And then they turn around and they ask him particulars, and he knows. I mean, he's not stupid. He knows that the call was recorded. Why would he lie? Why would he lie? He didn't lie. When the agents, and one of them happens to be Peter Strzok, when the agents left, they have a form that they have to fill in whenever they interview anybody called an F-302. And on it, they have to write down basic notes about the conversation that they had, the general feeling, the mood, how was the person that was being interviewed, what was their frame of mind, their body language. I mean, they have to fill in and give a pretty specific detail. Well, these guys wrote that they didn't think he was lying. But then what they did is they wanted to get rid of him because they didn't want Trump having the man who, you know, an analogy, all the bodies were buried in Washington. He knew everything that was going on. He knew about the Hillary servers, the Hillary emails. He wanted to audit the CIA because he believed that the CIA was being used as a political tool. And he also believed that some of the other agencies had been basically infiltrated as well. Folks, the man went into a job with the same agenda as Trump to clean this crap up. The country was left in shambles after both Bush and Obama. Involved in 2 major wars, trillions in debt, people socially dependent upon the government. The Democrats, when they don't get their way, they lie. They can't get legislation passed, so they try to do it through the judiciary, and in a lot of cases in the past, they won because they had judges on the take. So if you notice what's been happening is the whole, remember we were all called tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorists about Hillary and the emails and Hillary with Benghazi, and that Hillary was a saint, there was no scandals, and Obama had no scandals. Well, we're going to dig into this, and then I'm going to show you some things that I think you might find of interest. So in Washington, Judicial Watch, which is a private organization, they sue the government for records under the Freedom of Information Act. And they released 143 pages of new records today from the United States Department of Defense. This was last Friday, showing extensive communications between the Pentagon's Director of Office of Net Assessment, James Baker, and the Washington Post reporter, David Ignatius. So what was happening at this point in time is they were setting him up. They had leaks coming out of the DOJ and out of the FBI that were going straight to the news media. And they were leaking to the public that this man was a traitor to his country. The news media is involved, not just implicated, they're directly involved in the conspiracy to bring down Donald J. Trump by any means possible. Guilt by association, all your people are corrupt. Every investigation that was done, they got every single one of these people, Roger Stone, all of them, on technicalities. technicalities, which under any normal circumstance, they wouldn't have been scrutinized, and we'll get into that. So this is the gentleman here, Peter Strzok, and in January of 2017, they had investigated Michael Flynn through the FBI and were basically ready to drop and close the case because they had nothing. And Strzok comes along and basically begs the FBI to keep it open. He was an FBI agent, one of the senior top brass. So they leave the investigation open. And he's one of the two FBI agents who went to the White House, didn't inform Flynn that he was basically being interviewed, didn't read him his Miranda rights, didn't offer him counsel, didn't offer him anything, and started questioning him. He came to the conclusion on the 302 that he was telling the truth. And then they reopened it to get him on technicalities of things he couldn't remember. Because at the end of the day, folks, not everybody can remember a 2 or 3 minute fast-paced telephone conversation word by word. I'm a pretty swift guy. I'm sure most of you are as well. There's no way you're going to remember every word in detail of a complete conversation unless you have a photographic memory. It's just impossible. So they nail him on a technicality. Then what they do is they try to get him to cop a plea, anything negative about Trump. But there is nothing. So he says nothing. So they're dragging him through the mud. He ends up going bankrupt. He loses his home. And when they know that they've almost got him boxed into a corner, that he'll talk, they bring his son into it and they tell him that if he doesn't talk or cop a plea or take a deal, that they're going to go after his son on trumped up charges as well. No pun intended. So they've set and orchestrated all of this to get him out of the way so that he couldn't help Trump upend Obama's legacy, which Trump all by himself has done a pretty good job of wiping most of that out. Thank God. But let's keep going. So, Trump says, I would certainly consider bringing General Flynn back into the administration. I think, with what I've been able to find out and read, I think within a matter of days, if not the week, General Flynn will be an exonerated man, proven that he was set up, framed, that's the only word for it, framed, and they did it for political reasons because the more people they could bring down around Donald J. Trump, the worse they could make it look for him. They could go ahead and try to nail him on anything for an impeachment because then they could say, see, all of these people colluded with the Russians. It all came from the top, but it all fell apart, and it's falling apart right before our very eyes, which is why you're starting to see the Democrats are starting to really freak out. So we'll go a little bit further. So, out of all the unsealed FBI documents that were released on Friday and over the weekend, an additional 11 pages of documents. Then the biggest surprise, and all of these articles will be embedded in this video in the drop-down box. They'll all be underneath. You can pick up anything and go through all the literature to where I get the information that I present. But they're directly implicating Obama in the spying on Donald J. Trump, and with Manafort, with Michael Flynn, with all of them. He was at the head of this. Susan Rice, on the day of the inauguration, was in the White House, and on the White House email system, wrote herself an email saying that the boss wanted them to investigate this and follow the course by the letter of the law. Why would you write that to yourself? Do you have to tell yourself that the letter of the law has to be done, or is it up to the FBI and the DOJ to actually uphold the law and investigate instead of trying to pin a crime on a human being? You see, there was no crime. So they weren't investigating a crime to get to a perpetrator. They had a perpetrator. They wanted him to be the perpetrator, and so they had to invent the crime. And so he lied to the FBI because he couldn't remember certain facts. If you're on vacation, maybe had a couple of cocktails, relaxing, you get a phone call, are you going to remember every single moment of that call? You're going to remember every word? I highly doubt it. Anyway, we'll move on. So, also over the weekend, the State Department belatedly released new Clinton Benghazi documents. In this article here, it gets into Judicial Watch announced today it has obtained new documents from the Department of State containing the telephone transcripts from the evening of September 12, 2012, in which then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton informs then Egyptian Prime Minister Hisham Kandil that the deadly terrorist attack on the U.S. compound in Benghazi had nothing to do with the film. The documents include previously unreleased telephone transcripts with world leaders about the Benghazi attack. She lied. She lied in front of the House. Remember, she was brought in and she said, what difference at this point does it make? And 4 Americans lost their lives trying to defend a compound, one of them being the ambassador. She lied. And Obama helped her cover it up, and Obama lied. Now, I don't know if you can be impeached in hindsight, but Obama should be impeached because he lied to the American public. He lied about that. He also lied about you can keep your doctor and you can keep your plan. He lied about a myriad of things, and yet the religious nut jobs on the left that idolize that man forgive everything that he did. And most of it is anti-American, anti-Constitution. Anyway, he condoned what she did, and he backed it, and he covered for her, and she lied. So, here's another article. This one here is by the Republican Post. State Department releases phone transcript of Hillary admitting that she knew Benghazi was a planned attack. And in this one here, there's an embedded video right here. There's documents and a video in there. And Judicial Watch explains what they found in the documents. But suffice it to say, that investigation is back open as well. Plus a lot of other ones. Bill Barr has appointed Mr. Durham, and I will continue. So, as I stated earlier, Christopher Steele just threw Hillary and Susan Rice under the bus during testimony in British court. So, we get into this article, and it says, now we're seeing the first crack in the wall, and the water is starting to leak, and the Democrats have been groaning in agony. Christopher Steele, the former British intel spy who wrote the debunked fan fiction Trump-Russia dossier for Team Hillary, just threw Queen Hillary and disgraced liar Susan Rice under the proverbial bus during testimony in British court. What they were questioning him was, who is he working for, and ultimately, who is that firm working for? And he admitted that he was dealing directly with Hillary herself. At first he said the head of the DNC, and they said Hillary. And then he ended up basically saying, yeah, it was Hillary. So he was dealing directly with her and directly with Susan Rice. Susan Rice is the one who wrote the email. Susan Rice was one of Obama's top people. Kind of figures that Obama knows about it, right? Kind of figures that Obama, considering he's head of all the intel agencies, can direct it, right? Yep. So there's a lot of dirty players at the beginning of all of this. So here's Bill Durham, and he's been appointed by William Barr to investigate everything Russiagate. And now, as it turns out, they are after everything Mueller investigation. So it says right here, remember what U.S. Attorney John Durham is doing. He's deconstructing the Mueller-Weissman inquiry. This investigation by Durham will show conclusively that the Mueller-Weissman investigation was a fraud. This was a special counsel that was involved in looking into the Russian collusion scandal. That it was never intended to find a crime, that it was intended to entrap the president to get an impeachment for a false statement if he gave an interview, which of course his lawyers and lawyers like us told him never to do, never give that information. They were willing to upend a duly elected president over a word game and try to entrap him and say that he lied. They were willing to do anything because Trump is a threat to the establishment in the bureaucracy, and Trump is a threat to the old guard establishment left and some on the right that you and I call rhinos, Republican in the name only. So we'll get to the next one. So we run into this awesome, amazing, fine, upstanding woman who tried to run for governor, lost, and then whined and said that she was robbed of the election and that the people who voted were racist, and she's just a real fine piece of work. But again, identity politics is the name of the Democrat game, and they use it against everybody and everything, and lately it's been eating some of their own, which is kind of a good thing. They're getting a taste of their own medicine. But this woman now, she says that Trump is an illegitimate president who opposes mail-in ballots because he's afraid. So let's see why anybody would be afraid of Democrats and mail-in ballots. All right? So we're going to go and we're going to check out a few more things here. So this is from Real Clear Politics. It says here 28 million mail-in ballots went missing in the last 4 elections. 28 million. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of votes, and that's a lot of vote changing ability. So, do conservatives have something to be worried about? Absolutely they do. Let's dig a little deeper. So, we're going to talk about this gentleman for just a minute, and then we're going to keep on going into what's going on and how it brings us to today. So, Progressive Mag came out with a gentleman back in 1993 named Alexander Coburn. He lamented then presidential candidate Barack Obama's choice of Biden as running mate in August 2008. Biden, in Coburn's view, was an empty and worthless swamp creature, a DC insider chosen purely to improve Obama's electoral odds, who would ultimately stifle any progressive agenda for the candidate of hope and change. Did you catch the end here? He was a DC insider chosen purely to improve Obama's electoral odds, who would ultimately stifle any progressive agenda for the candidate of hope and change. They picked Biden to slow Obama and hold him back. Well, Obama sure wasn't held back that much, because it seems like old Joe's motives are right in line with that of Obama, and in some cases even more radical to the left. I mean, he's not quite Bernie, but he's not far off. So, we have this woman named Tara Reid who has basically made an allegation that Biden more or less raped her. And it seems really odd to me that nobody in the news who was all Me Too movement back during the whole Judge Kavanaugh fiasco, might as well call that Kavanaugh Gate or Judge Gate. I mean, it's just been so many things, one after the other after the other. It gets kind of sickening, and it's never ending. It becomes vicious to the mind, and I'm sure a lot of people just tune it out. And that's what I want to do, is go through all the information, disseminate it, and give it to you in a 35 to 60 minute set of time, window of time, so that it's easily digestible and you can understand where you're at and why. So the Me Too movement is basically nowhere to be seen from the top leadership. The news media, where are they? They were all over Judge Kavanaugh. He was a rapist, he was this, he was that, all women were to be believed, but Blasey Ford showed up in front of the Senate and basically couldn't answer any questions with any relativity. Her story didn't match. None of her witnesses could recant anything that she said happened. Nobody had any knowledge of it. And yet, that woman was supposed to be believed. Whereas this woman, right, in 1993, her mom calls into the Larry King show. She's talked to friends, relatives, and neighbors in 93 until now. Story basically always was the same. It's not like in 1993 she planned on, hey, Joe Biden might be president someday, so I'll have my mom call Larry King and I'll make all these allegations, and when he gets rich and famous, I'll just sue him. I don't think life works quite like that. That would be like, I don't know what that would be like, but that would be like fantastic, mind-blowing, if you could predict the future like that. Anyway, I don't think anybody has that ability, but that's what the Democrats are basically asserting. So, despite the media silence, the Biden assault allegations is gaining traction above the mainstream Me Too movement. The average mom at home still hasn't filtered up to the level of the leadership yet. Where's the likes of Madonna and you know, remember that she wanted to burn down the White House. Where are the likes of these people for her? Oh, that's right. That's right. Only if you're a Republican do you get any airtime, because it's all negative. They just beat the crap out of you and make more salacious allegations than ever before, and it gets worse and worse and worse, and everything is always refuted and disproven. But with the Democrats, nothing's ever said. How amazing is that? It's not like the news media is involved in any way. Could it be? Anyway, so we have this fine woman from Michigan, and she wanted to extend the state of emergency from last Thursday and put an additional 28 days on it. And lo and behold, her state didn't take too kindly of that. And so they basically had the house stormed. Some people with rifles. And nobody got shot, nobody got hurt. But I told you a couple of shows ago that the United States public is going to come to a day where they've just had enough. And, you know, you could see anarchy in the streets. I don't know where all this is going, but in these states that won't reopen, I fear for people. I really do. I fear for a lot of things for them. And I'll talk about a little bit of that after. So, the California GOP is right now suing Gavin Newsom over what's called ballot harvesting ahead of the May special elections. Now, you might be asking yourself, ballot harvesting? What the hell is ballot harvesting? Remember we were talking about mail-in ballots a couple of minutes ago? So, the California Republican Party has filed a lawsuit against Democrat Governor Gavin Newsom to try to prevent so-called ballot harvesting in 2 upcoming special elections. Ballot collecting or harvesting involves campaign workers and volunteers collecting mail-in ballots from voters' houses and then bringing them in groups to a polling station. In 2016, California changed its laws to allow any person to collect a mail-in ballot, whereas it used to be restricted only to family members of the voter or those living in the same household. So, let me get this straight. They want to have, all while knowing 28 million ballots went missing in the last 4 elections. That's both through Bush and Obama. That's amazing, huh? So, knowing that, they want to push through that they get mail-in ballots, knowing that they get lost or stolen or removed or substituted. And now they're going out and they're either collecting, like knocking door to door and paying for a ballot, because you know that that was reported as happening during the 2012 election. They were talking about it on the news. So why wouldn't it happen in California? I think what's happening in California, there's a lot of people waking up to this liberal ideology and saying, whoa, 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 this is not what I signed up for. I signed up for liberalism, which is, you know, what I think and identify with from my parents and my grandparents today, but it's gone way past that. It's so far left, it's out of control. And I think California right now is going to try to do anything possible to try to win an election. And I honestly don't know where all of this is leading, but I just can't see how pitching Biden and our friend back here, Stacey Abrams, that we already talked about. Stacey Abrams wants to be the vice president, and apparently she's in the running. She's one of Biden's picks. He hasn't announced it yet, but she's on the list. So, can you imagine that? Can you imagine just Biden as president, period? It's unimaginable. The guy can't remember who he is. He can't remember what state he's in. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He bumbles from one half sentence to the next. He's not coherent, no straight thought patterns. Who's going to be behind the puppet strings? The likes of AOC, Stacey Abrams, Ilhan Omar, Nancy Pelosi, Nadler? I mean, you could keep going. Wow. There's a lot of sick, twisted people that might be behind those strings. Telling America it's time to wake up and start thinking realistically that this is one of the most important elections of probably our lifetime and probably in the history of the nation. And that's not a joke. That's for real. The history of our nation. Do you want to know what's going on up north? I wasn't even going to bring this up, but I might as well. Talk about freedoms and rights. Our rights and freedoms are being infringed upon with this coronavirus. So during this so-called pandemic, and don't get me wrong, I've said in past shows, I fully believe that there was a virus. However, the numbers do not bear out the deaths, and the death rate is nowhere near what they were predicting from Dr. Fauci's model, which is the Gates model. So we have some problems with the modeling that has happened and how it has transcended into this lockdown. And what we have is we have people who are being kept home. We have people that are getting fed up being at home. We have people who are getting arrested in the streets for violating basic lockdown orders. And that has led us to here. So the funeral directors now are saying that the pandemic, they're saying that every single death certificate, they're writing COVID-19 on it. Every single one. So if the death rate has dropped, the flu was supposed to be the worst it's been in decades, and we had really high numbers of flu and flu deaths in January. We had them in February. We get into March, and by the third week of March, they're dropping the numbers of people dying by the flu is dropping off by the thousands, but yet COVID-19 is going up. So flu going down, COVID-19 going up. They keep statistics by month of who dies of what. So if you died of a heart attack, died of a stroke, died of being crushed to death, killed in a motorcycle accident and being decapitated, whatever it was, the death got recorded. And they kept statistics so that they could predict on average how many people died in the city of New York and this particular month, blah, blah, blah. Well, during March, all of those numbers went down. Some of them by like close to 90%. And the same amount was tacked onto the COVID-19 deaths. You understand that this is all about money. So if you're somebody who is admitted into the hospital and you didn't have COVID-19, the average was you got between $7,000 and $10,000. If you're somebody who is admitted with COVID-19, the hospital got $39,000. It's just first hit. You tell me that this isn't about money when the numbers have been steadily going up, and yet I'm going to get to a few things down the road here in which doctors, and I'm not going to play the videos, I'm going to just show you which videos they are, and they'll all be embedded underneath this. You can watch these accredited physicians in their fields, and they will tell you that, number one, the amount of people who are dying is less than the annual flu. They will tell you that the COVID-19 virus is a coronavirus, which is what a flu virus is. They're all coronaviruses. It's just the strain is slightly different. They're going to also tell you that it is your immune system that will fight this off. So remember that point, but because I'm going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. But even the funeral directors are writing down and recording that every single person who comes in is died of COVID-19. It's impossible. Absolutely impossible. So we're going to get back to how all of this kind of plays into each other. So we have Michael Flynn, who's probably going to be exonerated. We have James Comey. We have John Brennan, because Durham is directly going after John Brennan. John Brennan is the key to the kingdom for everything, because everything from the White House to anywhere went through Brennan, through the CIA. Now the CIA was using foreign intel to investigate everybody that they wanted to. Which brings us to today. Through all of this, and I'm going to digress for a second and go back in time. After 9/11, I believe that a lot of Americans opened up their eyes after they saw what Bush did with the Patriot Act. And they saw how it impacted our rights. Along comes Obama, and they see that rights are being impacted even more than before. Remember, he had his cell phone and a pen. He was going to rule by fiat executive order. Didn't matter what anybody wanted. Didn't matter what, they were protesting. It didn't matter what the people wanted. He was going to go full steam ahead and do whatever he wanted. The Iran nuclear deal, that was an amazingly stupid deal. They were going to get the bomb. They were going to let them manufacture the bomb. It was just an inevitability of when. So they would do inspections and blah, 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 blah for a period of years, and then they were off the hook to do whatever they wanted. No further questions asked. Just behave yourself until I'm out of office, and then do whatever you want. I just want to make sure there's peace in my time. And I'm sure that was the mindset of that whole thing, to make it look like, oh, a big shot. I dealt with the Iranians. No, you're an idiot for dealing with the Iranians because you gave them everything that they wanted, which is ridiculous. Why would you proliferate nuclear weapons in the Middle East to a regime like that? Unless you had something to gain for it. So, let's get into a few things, and I'm going to tie all of this together. Right now, there is a lot of speculation coming out from Intel and from the DOJ that the Chinese knew about the coronavirus as far back as September, and that they hid the fact until basically January, so that if their economy was crashing, it was basically tit for tat. Our economy was going to crash too. Everybody's. If they were going down, we were going down. These tariffs that Trump has placed on them had their economy in a spiral, and they were heading down anyway. So during the negotiations, the Chinese managed to slip in that the trade negotiations would be null and void if they had a national emergency such as a pandemic. Now don't forget, this agreement was signed after September. So if the virus was on the loose in September, and this agreement wasn't signed until 2020, it's a long time for a virus to be traveling in and out of Wuhan. Now, last show we talked about nobody could get in and out of Wuhan to mainland China or anywhere else China. However, international flights in and out of Wuhan were happening daily. So they exported this virus knowingly and then put the clause in the trade agreement that they had an out, knowing full well that they were negotiating in bad faith to get the clause in the agreement, knowing that their country was already overrun with a pandemic. That they basically let out of a lab that should not have had the certification to do that kind of work. We talked about that last show. So this woman, Nancy Pelosi, the same woman who doesn't want to bring the House back in session so that they can figure out what they're going to do to help out small businesses that are going bankrupt right now. I fully believe that's what the Democrat Party wants. They want business to go bankrupt, and the ones that remain will be the ones that, if they can get Biden in as president by stealing the vote, because that's the only way they would ever win. Nationally, they can't win an election, not against Trump. He's got too much appeal because he's doing what's right for the country, and they can't deal with that. Plus the fact they're going crazy because of everything that I've talked about. And we're going to sum it all up in just a few minutes. So,
this is a really
while we're going through
important
this
thing
pandemic,
to look at, because this comes from direct.
While we're going through this pandemic, we have doctors that are coming out and telling you flat out. But you see, it's not coming out on mainstream media. You have to go and find the information. One doctor is talking about death rates being forged. He's talking about how the virus is very similar and of the same family as flu. And I'm not going to play it. This one here, People Need to Know What's Really Going On by Dr. Bruce Lipton. Do you remember, probably about 4 weeks ago, Dr. Fauci saying this could end up being another second wave pandemic come the fall? And you saw the look on Trump's face. I think that was the beginning of the end for Trump with, not of Trump, but for Trump with Fauci. My question is, why would you make that assumption that that could be what happens come fall? Just a question. So, this doctor here studies the immune system. And he talks about the immune system. You have another part of your immune system which is built into you by instinct, which is your fight or flight. And studies have proven, and he speaks about it in the film, that when you're in fight or flight, it's because you're in a stressful situation. So they started studying stress and what it does to the body. And when people are stressed out, such as in a fight or flight situation, the torso constricts the blood flow to the torso and the major organs. And where it pushes the blood is the extremities, the arms, the legs. So you can either fight or you can run. So he explains that while your body is in fight or flight mode, the rest of your organs are basically getting standby oxygen, standby blood flow. So here's his point. We've got all these people staying at home, not getting paid. Up to 60% of the people still haven't received stimulus money from what the news media is saying. And that's coming from both sides. But who's really to know? I mean, you don't know. But you've got businesses going bankrupt. You've got people hurting. You've got kids home from school. And you have an immune system which is basically being shut down because you are not using it. You're not out and about. You're not picking up other viruses. You're not keeping your immune system active with what's going on. You're also not getting any sunshine. You're not getting any fresh air. And so your immune system sort of goes dormant to a certain extent. And then they're going to lift the restrictions and say, okay, everybody can go back to work now. It'll be like, what, July? Before everything gets back to normal. So you've got July, maybe the mid to the end of July, and then you've got August. Then in September, you're getting back into the cool weather in the Northeast and the North again. And then we're back into flu season. Right about the time when everybody's immune system would start to kick in, because it's a 60 to 90 day reacclimation to everything. And then they're exposed to all these other new viruses come next fall. And then they claim that it's another pandemic. And then what? They shut us down again? They make us stay at home in the middle of winter? That could be devastating for the country. And we need to start thinking about this before too much more time passes. We have an election coming up in not that long. And we need to make some hard choices. So with that being said,
15 people
there's
now
another-
face charges after Lakewood police say officers broke up a funeral gathering violating New Jersey's stay-at-home order. The Ocean County Prosecutor's Office says officers found around 60 or 70 people on the corner of 8th Street and Madison Avenue around 6:30 at night. When they told everyone to go home, officers say people started getting argumentative. One man was arrested after giving officers a false name and social security number. 14 other people were charged with violating any rule or regulation adopted by the governor during a state of emergency. Katie Johnston for CBS Philly.
So that's one.
Because you're violating the mayor's order.
Some got confrontational today with Newark police after being stopped for violating the stay-at-home order. Last night, police in 4 bordering cities in Essex County stopped 1,000 cars and wrote 200 summonses against people who were out for non-essential needs.
Now, I've directed Superintendent Brown to order all police districts to give special attention to these parties. And this is how it's going to be. We will shut you down, we will cite you, and if we need to, we will arrest you and we will take you to jail. Period. There should be nothing unambiguous about that. Don't make us treat you like a criminal. But if you act like a criminal and you violate the law and you refuse to do what is necessary to save lives in the city in the middle of a pandemic, we will take you to jail, period. Now,
So, let me ask you a question. This is Declaration of Independence and the Constitution and Bill of Rights. So, let's just go to the First Amendment, shall we? It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So, this woman here, the police officers in the scene before that, people like her and Gavin Newsom of California and Cuomo in New York are willing to shut down cities, shut down states, and basically taking away your rights, forcing us to wear a mask. We don't wear a mask when they tell us that we have a flu pandemic coming. We all get up, we have our orange juice, we have our breakfast, we take our vitamins, we go to work. And if we get the flu, we stay home for a couple of days, we get over it, we get right back on the horse and go back to work. And some people with pre-existing conditions succumb to the flu. Every single year it happens. It's unfortunate. Lives are lost. But it happens every single year. And here we are in 2020, months before an election, after they tried to impeach a man, bring down everybody around him. They talk trash about him on the news. It's nothing but fake stories. They can't find any dirt on him. So they use this pandemic, which was real, it's a different strain of the flu, and then they absolutely turned it inside out and created a level of fear which is not even realistic. We are all going crazy, we're losing our economy, we're letting a bunch of leftist, socialist, Marxist idiots and ideologues try to take our country down and rip it right from underneath our noses under the guise of a pandemic. And meanwhile, they're flexing their muscles and exercising their power that they don't have. Stand up, America, and vote these people out. And let's put some fresh blood in, from city mayors to state legislators to the governor's office to House members and senators. We need to fix this problem now. And it also starts with, you need to protest your government so that your state joins the Convention of States and we amend the United States Constitution so that all of these politicians have term limits. 2 terms, you're done. You don't get influence from lobbyists. We actually remove that. This way they're not infiltrated by foreign governments or NGOs, non-government organizations. These people are being coerced, blackmailed, paid off to do their bidding, not the bidding of the American people. Wake up. All of this is designed, it's negative. It's against us. We voted for Trump. They do nothing but bash us. And as of this afternoon, and I will put that article in with the rest of them in the drop-down button below the video, they're now using a program within DARPA to actually spy and single out conservative social media users and target them. Mark my words. They've already pulled down videos that I've used as evidence in my shows. They have a team of 2 doctors. They pulled their videos right off the internet. Why would you do that? These gentlemen went through data and spewed facts, and they took the videos down because it refutes what Dr. Fauci and the rest of these egomaniac socialists are doing to this country. It's not just a few people, folks. Our country's been infiltrated by socialists since the 1950s. Do the research. I will prove it throughout shows. I'll show you evidence of this. John F. Kennedy spoke about that. I talked about that in a past show. These people hate Trump so much because he's exposing them for what they are, and the real exposure is about to come because a lot of people fall. And it starts with Brennan. So you're going to see things get far worse. You're going to see more against the people in the coming weeks until finally someone gets shot. And from there, I don't know what's going to happen, but I fear for our country on a lot of different levels, because it seems that our democracy is dying a slow, painful death brought about by evil, conniving, sinister people who will go to any depths. When you think they've hit the bottom, no, they break through the floor and go straight into hell. It doesn't get much worse than this. These people are anti-American. They don't care about anything but the power that they get, and they have radical ideas for this country. They don't care. I talked to you in a previous show about nano-dot technology. That's real. They're talking about it to do the vaccines that they want to come out with, and Bill Gates is involved with that. I'm telling you folks, start doing the research. I'll put the videos up and all of the show notes. Please watch and read as much as you can, because you'll educate yourself on what's really going on. But to sum up, I want to do these videos so that you kind of get a snapshot over a 4 or 5 day period and get a summary of where that's leading us to. And right now, it's not a good place. Anyways, folks, thanks for watching, and Godspeed to us all. God bless America. Good night.